This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for September 15th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Victory Monday edition of the podcast. Lots to get into today, so let's get right into it. And as we do every Monday morning, we're going to rewind the weekend, brought to you by Philly Goat. Philly Goat has you covered for all your Philly sports apparel needs. Go check them out. They get you ready for the Red October Express. Phillies playoffs. Eagles are 2-0. Sixers and Flyers are kicking off training camp. The Union are ready to kick off their playoff push. Lots of good stuff to choose from there. So go to phillygoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, it wasn't pretty. It definitely was not pretty. But I've said this numerous times on this podcast. Ugly wins count just as much as the pretty ones. Definitely a defensive battle for both teams. Both teams' defenses played well. I think for our defense, Jalen Carter being in there certainly made a difference. He was picking up some double teams. Didn't really show much on the stat sheet. Did get a sack that was called back due to penalty. But I think overall, Vic Fangio showed something you usually don't see. Came out blitzing, which I think certainly rattled Patrick Mahomes there early, didn't really give him a bunch of time. I think the defensive line, Jordan Davis played extremely well. Like I said, I think Carter, just his presence there really made a difference. Zadarius Smith got into the action. I think this is going to turn out to be a very, very good move for Howie. Like I said, it was low risk, high reward, but he was able to really make his presence known and providing that veteran leadership that the guys on this defensive line are certainly going to need. I think Zach Bond and Jahai Campbell played outstanding. They continued to impress. Secondary was a little shaky at times. I don't know what happened on the pass that he got beat on. I think he made a good play on the ball, played it well to try to knock that ball out, but I don't know if it was a blown coverage, whether he just got beat or what. That wasn't good. So it was kind of an up and down day for him. Adoree Jackson played better, but he stinks. That's my biggest concern, my biggest takeaway. I think they were able to mask it with the pressure they put in on Mahomes. I don't know if maybe that's why Vic did it, but I mean, he played better, but certainly it's still cause for concern there. It's cornerback too. Andrew Makuba came up with a huge interception. Dude just seems to be, it's one of those instinctual things, and some guys just always are around the ball, and it came up with a huge interception. I think it was a good coverage. I mean, the coverage was good on that play, and they forced Mahomes to not throw his best pass. Kelsey certainly probably should have caught it, but it was a tough play, and kudos to Andrew Makuba for being there and taking advantage of the opportunity he had. But like I said, I think defensively, this was a much better performance than what they showed against the Cowboys, holding the Chiefs to 17 points. Now, look, I don't know if they're the Chiefs they were 3 years ago, but that's still a solid defensive effort. And I feel they're just going to continue to get better. Offensively, I mean, they did enough to win. Saquon had, I think, 80 some yards, but they were tough yards. They needed them. They ran the tush push like every play. I'll get more on that in a minute. Wasn't a lot of opportunities for passing. Part of that, I think, was Kansas City was getting pressure on Jalen. I don't know if this is a kind of just the way it played out, these past two games or cause for concern, uh, or whether it's a Kevin Patula issue. I felt the play calling itself was very preseason esque. Granted, this is essentially like a preseason game because nobody played, but that definitely has to improve. And look, I don't want to necessarily take away from this game because this was a good win. The fact that you go into a hostile environment, the fact that Patrick Mahomes has never started his career off 0-2, never lost 3 games in a row, and you add the extra, whether or not anybody wants to talk about it, the extra bonus of they're embarrassed about what happened in the Super Bowl. So I'm sure they wanted to come out and get some measure of revenge. I mean, it's a regular season game. So to come out of this and do what you needed to do to win this game, that's what good teams do. That's what championship teams do. They find ways to win when it's a struggle. And the Eagles did that. Defense came up with a timely turnover again, just like they did last week in Dallas. The fact that when they needed the yards, whether it be tush push, Saquon getting the tough yards, they were able to get it. Shout out to Jalen and Devontae on that 50-50 ball. Basically Spagnuolo sent everybody, and Jalen was like, all right, I'm going to trust my receiver, and basically threw. It's like if you ever played tackle football in the backyard, essentially that was like a tackle football in the backyard kickoff pass. He just threw it straight up and said, go get it, Devontae. Devontae made the adjustment, and that was the turning point in the game, really. I mean, Makuba's interception certainly sealed it, but getting that touchdown was a huge part of that game. And like I said, he did what he needed to do to win the game. And that's what Jalen does. And for the Eagles overall, that's what good championship teams do. They find ways to win, even if it's an ugly game. So there's certainly a lot to clean up for next week, especially with the Rams coming into town, who they themselves are looking for probably some measure of revenge. They still feel they should have won that game last year. But this was a gauntlet to start the season. We said 2-2, we'd be happy. We're guaranteed to be 2-2 now. But winning 2 games didn't necessarily, some people didn't expect them to win this Chiefs game. So the fact that they won that, I mean, worst case scenario, these first 4 games are going 2-2. So again, I will take it. It wasn't pretty, but it didn't need to be. It was a defensive battle. And sometimes you have games like this, especially in the new NFL where nobody plays preseason. There's definitely some things to clean up. I think Patula, again, I don't know if it's a Patula thing, but it just looked very, very plain, the offensive play calling. So we'll see if they can get that cleaned up. But defensively, A-plus effort, I think, by the defense. Adoree Jackson still stinks, but he did play better. And then the tush push. I think we're seeing the final season. It's the farewell tour, I think, for the tush push. Just sloppy on both sides. I think post game, Terry Bradshaw was like, I'm sick of it. The fact they did it with the commissioner in attendance, and he just looked annoyed every time they ran it. But I feel like the Chiefs were offsides a lot, lined up in the neutral zone. There's a couple false starts that the refs did not call on the Eagles jumping early. I just really feel like this play is going away. So I'll get more into it on the Brotherly Birds breakdown this week with my brother, but I just feel like it's a swan song. It's the end of the tush push, but kudos to the Eagles for mastering it. I know it's hard to tell when you're down there, but I mean, and it works both sides. Listen, I'm not saying, oh, the Eagles, no, the Eagles, there was at least 1 or 2 times I saw that they jumped early. There was also 1 or 2 times that the Chiefs were lined up in the neutral zone. But if you can't stop it, you can't stop it. So on to the Rams. I'll have more on this as we go through the week, as I get a chance to kind of rewatch the game, check out injury news. I didn't really check too much of the post-game interviews. It was just a busy day, busy weekend actually for me. But 2-0 is 2-0. Doesn't matter how it looked, but the fact of the matter is you went into a hostile environment and I won't say impossible, but historically, Patrick Mahomes never started 0-2. Patrick Mahomes has never lost 3 games in a row. And you went in there, and now the Chiefs are 0-2. Patrick has lost 3 in a row, including 2 to your Philadelphia Eagles. And shout out to the special teams. Braden Mann and Jake Elliott especially, they continued to impress. Jake Elliott had 2 50-yard field goals. Braden Mann was just solid punting the ball. A decent day returning. I think that's going to get even better as guys get some of the newer Mechie and Tank Bigsby get more into the groove. Certainly, like I said, a lot to clean up, but it's a victory Monday. Your Philadelphia Eagles are 2-0. They went into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. Now, another tough game. And like I said, this first 4 games is a gauntlet. You have the Cowboys at home, which is a division rival. Then you go to Kansas City. You have the Rams at home, and then Tampa Bay. So to be 2-0 right now, I will gladly take that. But that does lead to today's question of the day. It's the day after the game. Who is your GOAT of the game? I think you could go many different ways with this. When we go 2 offense, 2 defense, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Jordan Davis, or Drew Makuba. I'm going to go with Jordan Davis because I feel like his play really set the tone, getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. You could also throw in a 5th option if you want, Jalen Carter, just his presence being on the field. But who is your go to the game? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest? Lots to talk about today. So let me know what your thoughts. But who's the go to the game? Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Jordan Davis, or Drew Makuba? I'm going Jordan Davis. But who do you got as the GOAT of the game? All right. Phillies had a decent weekend. Took 2 of 3 from the Royals. The Mets lost 2 of 3, so they got the magic number down to 1 heading into yesterday with a chance to clinch, but it was just not meant to be. Friday night, Walker Buehler looked halfway decent, making his first start. So even if he's not going to be a starter, to have his experience, if he can whatever he's working on with the Phillies coachings, it seemed like he was able to make some adjustments from where he was in Boston. So who knows? Maybe that will be an extra arm in the pen. And then Saturday, he could be taking Taiwan's spot. Taiwan had another rough outing, but kudos to the Phillies for fighting back. They win it 8-6. And then yesterday, Nola was cruising until he wasn't. Just imploded as the Phillies lose 10-3. So the champagne is on ice and heading out to LA with the team as they prepare for this 3-game series against the Dodgers. Kyle Schwarber hit 2 home runs, giving him 52. Still has an outside shot to break the Phillies single season record set by Ryan Howard with 58. But it's Red October Express time. All of these games from here on out are important. They have, 12 games left? 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Diamondbacks, 3 against the Marlins, and then 3 against the Minnesota Twins. This week, though, huge series out in LA against the Dodgers, up 4.5 games on the Dodgers. And the way the pitching staff is lined up, you got Ranger, Christopher Sanchez, and Jesus Luzardo. All you got to do is win 1. But if you can take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, you put a stranglehold on that 2 seed, which is huge because I just read this morning, Trey Turner is starting to take ground balls already and starting to feel better. So we will see. Mets, if you're keeping score at home, are home against the Padres this week. You always want to win the division by winning the game on the field, but who cares? If you win the division, you win the division. But I want to see 2 out of 3. Will not be watching any of the games way past my bedtime as all 3 games start after 10 o'clock. But big series, playoff-like atmosphere, I'm sure, out in LA. But the Phillies, through whatever happened yesterday throughout the National League, did clinch a playoff spot. So it's all aboard the Red October Express. Let's go, baby. It's playoffs. Let's get this thing. Let's clinch the division. Let's clinch the 2 seed and then just let the chips fall where they may. And then on Friday, I asked you for the question of the day. It was a Phillies vibe check. 100% positive. I think everybody was either feeling good or cautiously optimistic. That last time we did a vibe check, it was not that unanimous. So everybody feels slightly positive at worst about this Phillies team. So let's go out, take 2 out of 3 in LA, put a stranglehold on that 2 seed, win the division, and then get on. It's time to get on the Red October Express, baby. Let's go. Union, lost 7-0 out in Portland. Now, granted, they rested some of their players gearing up for Tuesday's U.S. Open Cup semifinal matchup in Nashville. But man, just got pounded. Vancouver is a playoff team, so but you had a shorthanded team, so I don't want to put too much into that because they're focused more on this U.S. Open Cup matchup on Tuesday. And then if that wasn't bad enough, on Saturday, the Villanova Wildcats and the Temple Owls lost a combined 101-9, where Temple lost to Oklahoma, scoring only a field goal. Villanova managed 2 field goals against Penn State. But we move on. Those were games. Elliott Shores Park, if you're listening, those are acceptable losses for the Wildcats and the Owls. Expect a little bit more of a fight out of my Owls, though. Yikes. But on to the next game. And then the Flyers made a trade as they gear up for training camp, which starts later this week. They traded goalie Ivan Fedotov it doesn't matter. He's not on the team anymore. It's either Fedotov or Fedotov. I've heard it pronounced both ways, but traded him to Columbus for a 6th-round pick next year. Have a lot of picks for next year's draft, but this was mostly a move to free up some cap space, like $3-4 million now the Flyers were able to open up. But training camp for the Flyers starts later this week. So what happened this weekend in Philly sports history? On September 13th, back in 2007, the Phillies came into the game trailing the Mets 7 games with 17 to play. They beat the Rockies 12-4, caught fire, won 9 of their next 10, catching the Mets and winning the division on the final day. And then on September 14th in 2011, the Phillies clinched a playoff spot. It was the earliest in team history they had clinched a playoff spot. They beat the Astros 1-0, clinching it in their 146th game en route to a team record 102 wins. Then in 2003, the Eagles lose their second straight to open their season and Lincoln Financial Field, 31-10 to the Patriots. Donovan McNabb struggled again, 186 yards, 2 interceptions. Eagles only scored 2 points in the first 2 games of that season. Fortunately for them, they would catch fire, winning 12 of their next 14, making it back to the NFC Championship game. And then in 2006, Keith Primo officially retired on September 14th from the NHL due to just the ramifications from the concussions that he had. So sad day for Flyers fans everywhere. But it was a big weekend in Philly sports. Eagles win. Phillies win 2 of 3. Need 1 win or 1 Mets loss to clinch their second straight NL East division. And then you had the Union, Temple, and Villanova. But Eagles win 20-17 out in Kansas City. Ugly wins count too. And that is Rewind the Weekend, I should say, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com, check out their selection of Philly sports apparel, and use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. Whether you're coaching Little League, crushing your fantasy league, or just rolling up to a bachelor party like a Philly legend, Lotwin Custom Hype Chains bring the energy. Fully customizable, totally unforgettable, and guaranteed to turn you into the MVP of the moment. Great for teams, groomsmen, or anyone who wants to show off with some serious swagger. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD, and get 10% off your own custom height chain. Lotwin, let's get hyped together. All right, let's do some housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, and on Instagram at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. That's the best way to stay in the loop for when the new Brotherly Birds breakdown comes out. Probably going to record a little earlier this week due to some school events at my kid's school, but it'll drop first thing Friday morning for your morning commute. But we'll break down the Eagles-Chiefs game and get you ready for the Rams-Eagles on Sunday. All right. On Friday, trivia question. I asked you, Mike Schmidt made his major league debut. What number did he wear that first season? And that was number 22. And as a bonus, I asked who was the last player to wear number 20 for the Phillies before Mike Schmidt? And that would be Roger Freed. And nobody will wear the number ever again. All right. September 15th. Let's go back to 1984. Phillies lose 4-3 to the Expos. Juan Samuel went 1 for 4 with a triple. It was his 18th of the year, setting the Phillies team record. He would end with 19, which also led the major leagues that year. But Juan Samuel, with a heck of a year, hit his 18th triple, setting a new modern Phillies record for triples in a season, which does lead us to today's trivia question. Who holds the record for I'll get it out. Who holds the record for triples in a season for the Phillies, and how many does he have? Hit me up on the Discord channel. First link in the description. Come over, talk some Eagles, some Phillies, answer some trivia questions, and have some fun. That is live. But who holds the Phillies single season record for triples in a season? All right. Fast forward to 1997. Eagles lose to the Cowboys 21-20 on Monday Night Football, a game they led 17-6 at halftime. But to their credit, Ty Detmer drove them into field goal range to set up the winning field goal. But unfortunately, Tommy Hutton botched it, bobbled the snap, and the Eagles lose, spoiling kicker, who that year, Chris Bonio, was the Eagles' prize free agent signing that year, who came from the Cowboys, ruined his return to Dallas as the Eagles lose 21-20. And this is one of those games where there, for some reason, random, and I'm sure you guys are like this too, there's always that random memory you have of specific games or specific moments. This one, 100%, it was a freshman at Temple. I was at my future fraternity house in the process of all the formalities of like getting a bid, this, that, the other. I may have already gotten my bid. I don't even remember that part of the split. I just remember being there talking a ton of trash, and it had already made my intentions known that I was going to be pledging that fall. But one of the older brothers was a Cowboys fan, Alvin Bailey, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. Just talking trash. And I'm like, you'll see, you'll see, you'll see. And then him being all in my face, and then being, just remember all of that trash you talked. If you know anything about fraternity life, you can read between the lines there. And I will say, Alvin did make do on his promise. Good lesson for a young neophyte like me. But the Eagles lose to the Cowboys 21-20. Should have known better than to talk trash, not only to one of the older brothers, but for that 1997 Eagles team. Should have known better, but I got what was coming to me in the end. So we'll leave it at that. And then fast forward to 2013, the Eagles lose to the Chargers 33-30 in the second game of the Chip Kelly era, but Phillip Rivers and Michael Vick put up a fantasy dream matchup, Madden-like numbers. Michael Vick threw for 428 yards, 2 touchdowns, added 34 rushing yards and a touchdown. Phillip Rivers had 419 yards, 3 touchdowns. Deshaun Jackson, 15 catches for 193 yards and a touchdown. LaShawn McCoy, 5 catches for 114, including a 70-yarder. So it was like John Madden. I remember being at this game, and it was just like you didn't want to get up to go to the bathroom, grab a beer or anything, because you were going to miss at least one touchdown if you got up out of your seat. But Eagles lose game 2 of the Chip Kelly era, 33-30. John Madden-like numbers being put up at the link against the Chargers. And then finally today, our underrated and underappreciated athlete in honor of his retirement anniversary over the weekend is Keith Primo. Keith was traded to the Flyers in 2000 in a trade that included fan favorite Rod Brindamore, who we talked about last week, Rod the Bod. But Primo was supposed to provide the Eagles or the Flyers with more size, teaming him up with Eric Lindros. Unfortunately, due to some of Eric Lindros's injuries, didn't really pan out that way. But Keith Primo stepped in and kind of wasn't quite on the level of Eric Lindros, but did provide some veteran leadership for the Flyers. Spent 6 years total in Philly, 213 points, including 87 goals. He was an all-star in the 03-04 season. Everybody remembers Keith for that 5 overtime performance in Pittsburgh where he scored the game-winning goal. It was one of his 12 playoff goals in his career with the Flyers. Unfortunately, could not overcome the concussion issues. He was a captain for the Flyers. Overall, good guy, good player, and then often overlooked. Everybody remembers the 5 overtime goal, but I feel like he was sort of like that bridge between the Eric Lindros era and like the Claude Giroux era. So a lot of times we overlook Keith Primo, but Keith Primo is today's underrated, underappreciated athlete, probably best known for the 5 overtime goal against the Penguins in the 2000 playoffs. On this day in 2013, John Madden live at the Link as the Eagles beat the Chargers 33-30. Michael Vick and Phillip Rivers both go over 400 yards passing, as we were excited at the time about the Chip Kelly offense. 1997, I talked my trash to Albin, got my punishment, and the Eagles lose 21-20 as Tommy Hutton bobbled the snap on what would have been the game-winning field goal attempt. And then 1984, Juan Samuel sets the Phillies' modern team record with his 18th triple of the year. Would end with 19, but trivia question of the day, who holds the current record for triples in a season for the Phils? We will have more on the Phillies-Dodgers. Unfortunately, we'll not be up to watch it, but hopefully we're coming at you as the NL East champs tomorrow morning. Hop on the Red October Express, though, because the Phillies are going to the postseason. It's just a matter of figuring out the details, but let's get that 2 seed. We'll have more on the Eagles, Chiefs, and start looking ahead to the Rams as we progress through the week. But again, I'll take it. Ugly wins count just as much as the pretty ones. But don't forget, who is your GOAT of the game? Jalen, Saquon, Jordan Davis, or Drew Makuba? I'm going Jordan Davis. Who do you got? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. But let me know who you got. It is a Victory Monday. Enjoy. Like I said, it was ugly, but Victory Mondays kind of set you up for a better week. It's Monday, but the Eagles are 2-0. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for September 15th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.